when we left off, you had pretty much finished your morning adventure. See, what happened is Jeb's been robbed, and Jeb's robbery included all of his possessions, his clothes, his pack, his spell book, like a whole bunch of his arcane focus, which is his guns.
What goes around comes around.
Yeah, exactly. So Jeb has been the victim of a theft, and the city watch are, of course, investigating it, but our party didn't want to wait for the city watch. And luckily, the jester, the king's jester, Everard, has some inside information. He's got the scoop on what happened, and he's got the evidence to prove it. But in return for his evidence, which he stole from the perpetrator, he asked the party to steal something for him, a joke book, to help him kind of up his standing with the king. They have now done that. It wasn't a theft. They managed to get it diplomatically, but they have attained the book of jokes that they needed. And when they get back to their guest quarters, basically at the castle, the first thing you guys get is a report from the city watch. And the city watch let you know that they don't have any suspects, but they have a handful of leads as far as, it's difficult to carry a safe down the street at night without being at least a little bit obvious. And so they have some people who are like, I think I saw something that looked like that, whatever. And so they're kind of looking into those things. They believe currently that the lockbox and Jeb's possessions are somewhere in the royal holdings. They think they're still in town. They don't think it's been fenced. They don't, none of that kind of stuff. But they don't know exactly where it is. So they're still working on figuring that stuff out. And they've asked you to still hold off on involving yourselves in the investigation unless you get permission from the king. Remember, there's a rule here that you cannot openly carry weapons. You can't practice, not that you could anyway, because magic doesn't work, but you can't openly practice magic. And
more than a cantrip, right?
Yeah, more than a cantrip. And you can't be wearing magic items that require attunement. Those are their three kind of like guidelines as far as what's too powerful to like wear outside the house. You can have all your possessions. They just have to stay in your rooms if they fit those categories. So you head back, you have a nice lunch. You all get some made to order lunch in your guest quarters.
Nice.
And then basically you're making your preparations to, three of you are going to meet with Everard the Jester to make the switch. And Jebediah Peppermint, you're going to meet the king at Domus Lunae, the Gomteun Cathedral, which is on the far end of the royal holdings. So the jester's instructions, Fox, you sit down and you kind of pull out the little paper he gave you. He palmed you some instructions on where to make the drop. He would like to meet you in the gardens. Remember, there's that field district on the west end of on the eastern end of the royal holdings. And there's some like kind of hedge labyrinth type things over there. And so he wants to meet you in one of those because the hedges will make it really easy to both obscure what you're doing with your hands from prying eyes. And then also with all those bushes, it'll make it hard to hear people, to be overheard, I should say, through all those. So that's what's going to happen is you're going to the center of basically the biggest of these labyrinths. There are several, but you're going to the center of the biggest one, which is where he will meet you and make the switch. And that's the plan.
Can I raise my hand?
Mm-hmm.
Isn't it a little conspicuous though? Like, I feel like if you're gonna meet in a maze, you'd meet at one of the dead ends, like on the edge that nobody really goes to. I feel like everybody wants to get to the center. I'm telling you, this jester doesn't think straight. All right, I'm just saying.
But the center is the hardest part to get to.
Listen here, all
right. Anyway, so if you have any preparations you want to make before you go, this is the time to tell me. For either party, like for Jeb's going to meet the king, and you guys are going to the labyrinth.
Alan really badly wishes he could take his scimitar of speed, but he hasn't taken it yet, and he has no way of hiding it because he has no baggy clothes.
That's true. All he's got is those silky robes or nothing.
Yeah. So never mind. He just has. He if it comes to it, fisticuffs.
Hey, Foxman.
Yeah.
Should I bring the plant?
Excuse me.
Should I bring the plant? In case we need it.
We're just meeting the jester, man.
I do also believe that in the current situation we're in, it may be best to keep all I say that, and then I do realize the last time we kept, what I was going to say was it may be best to leave magical items behind. However, then when I thought about it, I realized that that actually leaves increased opportunity for theft.
You're right. To back up a step here, City Watch have probably posted an increased guard on the guest wing.
Oh, okay.
There having been a theft. So there's probably like a regular guard who stands outside each of your rooms and a guard who checks all the balconies once every hour or something like that. So there's probably precautions in place to avoid something like this happening again.
Zoth, I'm not going to tell you not to. You do you. I'm just saying, we're trying to stay as low as possible on this one. Fox
All
says
right.
as he's hidden how many daggers on him.
I don't know, because when he goes out in the daytime, he's gonna have to roll some stealth checks for each dagger he wants to keep hidden on his person.
I will.
Or just one stealth check maybe for his hidden weapons.
I will leave the pot behind.
Just clarifying, we did return back to the rooms since.
Yes, you're back in the guest quarters now.
I'm probably gonna put the knives away. All right. It's no longer
Okay.
night.
I walk up to Zoth and I like shake his hand. And I palm him the 2 leaves that he gave me the day before.
Tasty.
Oh.
Wow.
I will
Any other preparations to be made?
slip them into my pocket.
No harm ever came out of, carrying some leaves with you.
I am gonna wary. I'm gonna wary.
You're gonna wary.
Ah,
Very, very Matt.
I'm gonna wear my magical armor that I make look like my robes. I'm gonna keep that on. I don't think I've removed that because I was wearing that this morning anyway. So
Okay.
I'll just keep those robes on. But I think that's about the only thing I'll improvise.
You can have advantage on the stealth check to hide your dagger. Oh, you said you're not bringing the dagger, so it doesn't matter. Okay. I was just going to say, because the magical armor, you can probably, there's some illusion-y stuff in there, but that's okay.
I'm going to keep my silk satchel with me that has my spell shells in it and the components that I picked up in town.
Cool.
Just
Little
odds
hip
and
purse.
ends. Yeah, it literally looks like a cluttered purse because at the bottom it's got some iron powder just sitting. It's not even in a compartment. It's just in the bottom.
Oh my goodness, it's gonna get on
and it's got yeah. I mean, but he just scrapes the crease at the bottom to pick up a pinch of it to cast whatever. And he's got a coiled up piece of copper wire and just like a feather. It's just all muddled up at the bottom.
I love the idea of Jeb about to cast a spell. You'll be sorry. Just give me a minute. He's digging in his purse trying
Where's
to find
that darn
the thing.
feather?
Either that
hands
or
lipstick to his friend. Hang on, hold this for me, will you? He pulls out a little makeup mirror. There it is, my iron powder.
either that or he has all these spell components loose in his pack. What if he accidentally casts something he doesn't mean to cast within his little pouch?
Boom.
Yeah.
The bag of tricks.
Yep. Alan is just gonna he's wearing his normal stuff, he's got his artificer components in his tool belt and everything.
Okay. Anything else you guys want to do as far as preparations go?
I'm good.
I'm ready.
All right. Last detail to figure out is as you step out of your rooms and you're about to go to your various places, City Watch tries to send an escort with you. Do you take it? Do you refuse it? How's that going to go?
Is this the original, or are there some private security goons in this?
This is a mishmash. We don't know exactly who's who.
Okay.
We're only going down to the gardens. Surely we'll be fine.
It is up to your own comfort level. We're simply offering because you were recently burgled.
Keep the guards here will suffice. I think the gardens will be
Very
safe.
well.
I believe that it may be more pertinent to guard our possessions while we're gone rather than guard us. That's the impression I have, at least.
Very good.
We can guard ourselves.
Very good. And
We
they
just keep
maintain
justifying, we keep giving
He's like,
reasons.
it's fine.
They're like,
yeah,
that's fine,
no,
dude. Whatever.
You're good.
It's good. And so you step outside to perhaps being escorted because you can't necessarily find your way to the front door of the king's expansive castle. But you step outside the castle, each of you to your own destination. And you know what that means. It means it's story time at the Wing Badger Tavern. And it means we got through the hook in like less than 45 minutes.
15
so,
minutes.
Heyo,
A new
we'll
record.
be right back.
Beep, beep, beep.
Zanir, Gontaeus, Kotix, Awara. Long ago, the four ancients created a world in harmony. Then, everything changed when the chat emped magic. Only Kelnor, master of good vibes, could stop them. But when the world needed him most, he vanished. 2 years have passed, and 4 adventurers have discovered a conspiracy, a company selling magic. And although their roleplay is great, they have a lot of XP to earn before they're ready to save anyone. But I believe they can save the world.
Let's meet our characters for the evening.
Yo, hello. My name's Matt. Just came back from my hospital arc, bringing up a bit that was not part of the stream. I am here to play Fox. He's a rogue changeling, and you know, he's turning a new leaf. You know, he's trying new things, and he's making friends.
Hey, I'm Wash. I play Jebediah Peppermint, the mole folk gun wizard. I got it right this time. And he not only is turning over a new leaf, he turned over 2 leaves to Zoth, and he's feeling pretty good about that move, that he remembered that. Because he's kind of groggy, didn't get any sleep, and we'll just see how the day goes.
What's up, guys? It's Jake. I play Alan Woodger, the Azamar Barbarian Artificer. He's a gun wizard who spits fire and fires spit and moles some folk. Anyway, he hasn't turned over any leaves. He's just been through a lot of trauma.
How do you mole some folk? What does that even mean?
It's your boy here. Trevor. I play Zoth Kibub, the orc cleric. And if he could, Zoth would drive a Dodge Hellcat. Shout out to the bonus content prior to the Twitch stream.
What's up, everybody? It's me, Josh, the Game Master from Wing Badger Gaming, back at it with another Twitch stream podcast. And on that note, we're going to say all the catchphrases and cram them all in because it's time to get back to our Dungeons and Dragons session.
Catchphrase.
Hit the subscribe with your
Ring
forehead.
that bell.
Ring that bell.
If you
Rate it
like
if you
what you
hate it.
see,
Share
hit
it.
the like
Post it
button,
on
and if you don't
Facebook.
like it, hit the dislike button twice. Oh!
Post it on your grandmother's feed.
This is a new iteration of us.
Kiss your dad square on the lips.
Kiss your dad square on the lips. Okay.
So, Jebediah Peppermint, you stroll down the boulevard, passing the holdings that you got to tour last night. You are able to take in some of the daytime sights a little bit better than you could in the evening, where, you know, some of the closed vendors of the North and South Market District are now open. They're selling all these sweet foods. You can see a bunch of different people and races and creatures you've never seen before, all interacting and mingling in the royal holdings. You can see important looking diplomats carrying sealed scrolls down the street, rubbing shoulders with equally important looking artisans and craftspeople who are carrying masterwork devices you can't even decipher the meaning of down the street to, you know, fulfill orders, things like that. And through all of this, almost looming but looking down over you, is Domus Lunae, the cathedral to Gontaeus, the biggest one in the world. And the cathedral, it's crafted of all black stone of some kind, probably onyx or obsidian, but it's hard to tell the make just because you don't know your way around stonework that well. But it stretches upwards, this huge minster of a cathedral. It's got black stonework, cobblestone walls that stretch up, and inset into those is gray flagstone forming the sigil of Gontaeus, this crescent moon that kind of interweaves with a tornado as it stretches down to the ground level. And then dead center in that are these huge iron doors, but they've somehow made them black, whether it's dyed or painted or brushed. They're iron doors, but they're black with these rivets of gold that stretch up the side. The castle doors, or the cathedral doors by themselves, are as tall as the whole first floor of the castle. The cathedral in total is about 6 stories tall, and the top of it is an open-air temple to Gamteus, which means that from the street level, looking up, what you can see are a whole bunch of pillars stretching to the sky, and then next to them, sort of interspersed throughout the top of the cathedral, at least the little bit of it that you can see, are metal altars, because in the Gamteun church, the idea is that if you can have your offering struck by lightning, it's a sign of Gamteun favor, and so people will leave their offering on the altar for a set period of time, depending on the severity, basically, of the thing they're offering penance for, or the seriousness of the favor they're asking. And then the priests, the Tonitris, would tend that, and so eventually they'll clear off the altars and things. And so as you're walking down this boulevard towards this, surrounded by all these comings and goings and bustle of everyday life, you almost are in this haze of your own little bubble, trying to prepare yourself to, you're about to have a private meeting with the King of Udril. This in a venue where no one has ever been allowed. Like, the only access that anyone's ever had to this cathedral who is not a member of the Gamteun Church is to go in, up the stairs, and onto the top floor in the temple when there are religious services. There are other shrines to Gamteus in the Holy District, which is to your left, the south, as you approach this cathedral, where you can go for normal sort of rituals or acts of worship. This cathedral is special, and as you get closer to it, you can see ranks and ranks of guards standing outside of it. When the king goes anywhere, he arrives with some security, but in particular on this trip, he seems to be flanked by a whole lot of people. Maybe an entire garrison of his finest soldiers are standing outside of the cathedral, and as they see you coming, as if you were a king or a diplomat or another royal guest, they snap back to attention, opening up a line through their ranks. And these are, cavalrymen, they're orcs, they're elves, they're tall folk. And so as they snap back, and Jebediah, hatless still, as I understand it, strolls through, he stretches up to maybe their shins, and they don't show even an inkling of noticing. Full respect, full court dress, full attention. And around them, as you walk through, around you, the ranks close behind you, so that if someone were to have nefarious purposes, they would not be able to perpetrate them. You make it to the iron doors at the front of this stone cathedral, and without having to knock or anything like that, they just begin swinging open, and beyond them you can see a cavernous atrium. You step inside, and without any visible, mechanism or anything like that, they swing shut behind you, and as they click closed, you realize that the closing action was cushioned by something, and so they don't slam shut. It's just a very soft click as they slot into place, and that click reverberates through this atrium where you stand now. The atrium itself has checkered marble tiles across the floor, and again, that sigil of Gamteus has been created in the center using the checked tiles. It's very dimly lit, which for your dark vision doesn't make a huge difference in terms of your ability to navigate, but it's very dimly lit by twin shafts of light that come through skylights so that they're standing like sentries from the top of the vaulted ceiling, all 6 stories tall, of this cathedral, straight down. And you can see swirling through them little motes of dust. And then between the two of those, standing by himself, holding his scepter in his left hand, and with his right hand resting comfortably on his hip where he would keep his weapons for combat, but today he has not brought any weapons, is Tactus the Unyielding, the King of Udril. As you walk towards him, he bows his head to you and he says, "Welcome."
I thank you for your hospitality and your courtesy, and you by no means need to bow to me, sir. And I bow down gently.
He lowers his left hand with the scepter and kind of hooks the scepter onto his belt so that it's just hanging there. And then he walks towards you rather swiftly for someone who's still, following sort of court courtesy. He comes towards you and he puts his hands on your shoulders and he says, "Speak not to me of hospitality when you were robbed in my own home. This is the least we can do to begin making reparations. And when we find whoever has robbed from you, I assure you, they will swing from the highest tower." And he takes his hands off your shoulders and he says, "But for tonight, let us have that conversation you wished. Let us talk of the history of my country and of your world. And he turns, and together you begin walking deeper into the cathedral. You step out of the atrium and into the Hall of Reflection, which is a massive, probably 500, 600 shins long and still 6 stories tall, vaulted something. It's almost like you can't quite make out the purpose of this room. There's a private chapel that stretches out the left side of it, or to, the south, basically, of the cathedral. But the rest of this room, it's decorated ornately. There are some statues or gargoyles, if you will, that are kind of perched on the walls. There are some different pillars and some tables and chairs, but none of them are arrayed quite correctly. It's like the room wants to be a lot of things, but isn't quite any of them. And then at the end of the room, there are 2 large doors, one on the left and one on the right. And as you step inside, he says, "So, do you wish for me to begin talking of history, or do you have specific questions?"
Jeb looks a little uneasy. He's trying to his very best to be as respectful. He's not incredibly religious, but he's kind of warming up to Awara and just because there's some history there with his people, and so he's trying to be as absolutely respectful as possible. But something about the harsh stone at the dwarven architecture that he's just like in the back of his head, he's like, ugh, dwarves. Just from way back then, it's not all smooth and flowing like dirt is. It's not out of hate or disdain, but it's just
disappointment.
It's so rigid. No, it's just so rigid. He's really trying his best to respect it for what it is, but it's just so.
It's not his aesthetic.
It feels alien. It's like if you were to walk into somebody's home and they were all welcoming, but everything is made out of cast iron walls. It's like, okay, that's a thing, I get it, but it just feels off.
He's not vibing.
Not vibing.
Yeah, it is a vibe, and he respects that it is a vibe, but it is definitely not his vibe. So we're currently in the Hall of Reflection. Is that what you said?
Yes.
Yeah. He's going to humor the king for a little bit, because he wants to be incredibly polite and be interested in their history. So he's going to say, by all means, tell me about your forebears.
Very well. We shall begin at the beginning. And as you continue walking, the pieces around you that looked like they're out of place, they start shifting in weird ways, and you realize for the first time that they have polished the stone to such a level of reflectivity that they're actually reflections of things that are painted on the ceiling. And as you move, the images that you see next to you are shifting like depictions of the history of Udril. And so what started out looking like tables and chairs and things like that, like it's a literal hall of reflection. So what started out looking like generic odds and ends that don't quite align but are still actual things, as you walk, they begin to materialize, sort of like those shifting holographic postcards you can see. It's kind of like that as the pieces come together. And the first image that they make is a dwarf with jet black hair standing with a broadsword over his head, and the scepter is clipped to his left hip, but he's not holding it. And then his hair kind of flowing behind him is almost shrouded in flame. And the king says to you, "This is Aeneas the Architect, the first king of Udril, created by Gomteus himself at the beginning of our race to hold our people together, to lead us into prosperity, safety, and legacy. Aeneas the Architect is responsible for the establishment of the clan holdings, and by establishing the clan holdings, he was also able to establish a rapport with the rest of our race that could then be used to unite us, though we would not become the full nation of Udril until 4 kings later, in the era of Arceus the Uniter. However, Aeneas the architect laid the foundations upon which everything else was built, and it was his obsession with legacy that became the cultural building block for everything here. Clans now compete for the right to build something in the royal holdings. The greatest aspiration that any child can have is to design and create something that will outlive them. And we are a long-lived race, so that is a significant ask. This cathedral that you're walking in was built by Aeneas the architect. It was his first construction and his last construction. It took his entire life to build and most of the resources of his small clan to construct this place. All of these reflections that were put into place were added as different kings, came and went. And when Aeneas passed on, he was the first of us to sail the astral seas and advocate on our behalf to the Council of the Gods. And then as you continue walking, the images begin shifting and materializing into other kings. And so you learn of the 12 kings who were his predecessor. As you're having this conversation with the king, on the other end of the royal holdings, we see Fox, Zothkug, and Owlin step out of a lower exit from the castle that leads directly east into the field district. Ahead of you is, the hedge mazes and the sort of water features and things. And just as Jeb was able to see during the day, it's not a bustling area over here, but it's a lot of foot traffic. There are people who are just taking a stroll. There are, people who are riding horses and sort of, the training fields for the garrisons are further north from where you are. But every now and then a messenger on behalf of the army rides by or something like that happens. And so you brush shoulders a little bit with some of the more working class of the royal staff. But indeed, ahead of you is the maze to which you're going.
Zoth?
That's it.
Yeah, man.
Alan? It just came to my attention. What if we're being double-crossed?
And we're being double-crossed, man.
I do believe, in his defense, I don't remember whether it was Jeb or Zoth who also brought up this concern. I believe that you and I's answer was, well, we'll figure it out when we get there. Which has generally been, I feel as though, our answer for a lot of things, except for the rare times where we do just, completely overthink certain scenarios to the point of...
We spend, 45 minutes to get a day started,
Yes, it's especially to a point of, inconsequential, where we get there and then suddenly, nothing that we said actually matters.
Almost like we're doing right now, man.
Somewhat. However,
I had to die to the tension pool.
However, as Zoth pretty much just said, we'll be on our guard, but there's not much else we can really do in this situation. We at least have Jeb as a safety net with the king.
This is your wheelhouse, man.
This is much more your wheelhouse than ours.
I'm just trusting you.
The meeting spot.
The meeting spot is quite interesting. However, on our journey here, it does somewhat remind me a bit painfully that we haven't really had much time to just take in something beautiful like this since this whole quest kind of started.
I don't know. The first day was nice.
Yes, but I feel like there's a bit of a difference between something like this where it's you kind of get to see the average dwarf here just enjoying these beautiful grounds, as opposed to we have been very lucky to be treated like royalty these last few days here, but I think that gives me, at least me, a bit of a different feeling than actually just being on these grounds and seeing the people that we're trying to save. If that
As you
makes
say
sense.
that, a small leather ball rolls across the path in front of you, chased by 3 small dwarven children, just kind of laughing and playing. And they chase it, and it falls in the river, and they all laugh at each other. And one of them reaches down to get it, and his friend shoves him in, and they're just playing.
Yeah,
He's drowning. He's playing.
Yeah.
Hey, Fox, remember when I pushed you in the river?
All right, listen here. All right, we agreed never talk about that again. Okay,
But it's such a fun time.
you did not sneak up on me. All right, we've been over this, but
I totally got you that day. The one and only time I
You know
snuck
what?
up on you.
I will say this, Zoth.
Was he distracted by a
I
mermaid?
kind of miss those days, you know?
You're the one who wanted to leave.
Well, I mean, yes, I wanted to leave and go do something, but not the fate of the world.
I could go push you in the river right now if that'll make you feel better.
No, Zoth, I think that would make me feel wet and very uncomfortable for the rest of the day.
Refreshed. It'll refresh you.
All right, listen. Just keep your eyes peeled. And let's enjoy
You got
the
it, man.
5 to 10 to however many minute walk this is.
It's about 7 minutes of walking as you kind of follow a winding footpath through the district. Some other children playing, horses riding by. You pass a small gnome painter who's just sitting down with their canvas in front of them, painting the landscape ahead of them. And then you make it to the entrance to the labyrinth. From up close, you can now get a sense of scale for the thing. The hedges are about 2 owlins tall. So it's a serious labyrinth in terms of height, and they're all very well tended, not a single twig out of place. And so they create very clean, smooth walls. There's plenty of room for several people to walk side by side in them, about 15-foot width paths.
Wow.
And the ground is like worked dirt, if that makes any sense. So it's like packed very smooth, and it even has a little brushed finish on top where it feels like probably someone comes out and like tends this area at the beginning of each day to sort of remove any mud or footprints or anything like that. So it's just like a very natural area. And while there are no signs or anything indicating that it's a rule, you can see several like boots and shoes and things next to the entrance where it seems like sometimes people choose to go barefoot in the labyrinth. It's not like a thing you necessarily have to do, but you can see that some people do that.
Zoth will go barefoot.
I say Alan takes off his fur boots, kind of excited. Alan's a fan of the less the better. So
Fox cocks his head
Zoth
at
will
this,
take off his shoes.
and he's just like, you know what? F it. Yeah, it's been a while since the last time I put some dirt between my toes.
Yeah, that's the spirit.
Alan's got very calloused feet. Sorry, go ahead.
And I was just going to say, and so you enter the labyrinth. If you're on the assumption that you're trying to go straight to the center, I would like someone on behalf of the party to make a survival check to navigate your way there.
I think Fox is in the lead on this one.
I say Alan can also make it if that feels more comfortable
if I were to
as well.
rate my skills from 0 to 10, I would say it's about a modifier of +1.
I'm getting
will-
flashbacks of Fox leading the way through Makar's labyrinth.
Alan got a nat 20.
Nice.
Alan got a nat 20. All right.
Yeah.
Well, you don't have any issues or anything like that on your way there. I am going to add a die to the tension pool to represent the passage of time. So it's fairly uneventful that you make it to the center of the labyrinth. The center of the labyrinth is a reflective place. It's a smooth stone kind of circular dais with a couple of tables and benches where people could sit and recline. And then at the exact center of it, there is a rhombus of water. And it's perfectly clean water, even though it's sitting. So probably there's some kind of like underground feed or spring that is kind of keeping it, fed, but has been managed in such a way that there's no bubbles. So it's perfectly smooth, reflecting the blue of the sky. And it is a cloudless blue sky kind of day. The season at the moment, this is the first time we've talked about season in this game. This is the season at the moment is trending towards fall, but it hasn't quite reached it. So it's like the warmer end of summer.
Because we haven't been above ground very much this game. That makes sense. That's funny.
So you're there under this cloudless sky, and as you stand at basically the entrance to this area, it's maybe 60 shins across, and you're standing at, the end of the labyrinth where the little pathway ends. You can see on the other side from you, sitting down with his legs crossed, is Everard the Jester, today wearing a robe of flowing blue with tassels of deep burgundy. and he's got his legs crossed and his hands are holding a book and he's flipping through the pages. And the book is a small pocket notebook sized leather bound book. And I mean, Fox, you can kind of assume what this would be. And he looks up and he sees you and he goes, "Hello, friends. I hope you've brought something good for my birthday." And he winks at Zothkug. Meanwhile, in the cathedral, Jebediah Peppermint, the king, is continuing along in the history of Udril. And so you've heard about several of the early formative wars among the clans. And you've heard now about how after Archaeus the Uniter, the very next king was known as the Divider in the name that he took. And they don't actually speak this king's proper name because the Divider is responsible for a civil war that generated 3 factions among the clans and would last for 3 generations of kings, in which each faction would elect its own king and then war with each other. So he's just finished kind of telling you about this bit. And he turns to you and says, "This is a lot to take in. How are you feeling? Do you have questions?"
It is a lot to take in. But it's very impressive and a testament to your people's sturdy and resilient nature that you've been able to still make it through all of this with your kingdom intact, and it's impressive.
Thank you.
I had a question though.
Yes.
Is there anybody? There isn't anybody around us. It's just us two, right?
It's just the 2 of you. Technically, there are members of the Gomtean Church who live somewhere in this building, but you haven't come across them or their quarters. Like, the Hall of Reflection is just the 2 of you.
I'm going to say, I hope this isn't too forthcoming because it's a bit more of a personal question. But
Ask away.
I noticed from king to king to king that your scepter has been passed down. Were you worried when you received it that it might consume you?
He gives you a searching look, and then he reaches down to his hip and he flicks open the little clamp that's holding it there, a little carabiner, and raises up the scepter that he's got with him. And up close, you can see the remarkable detail in the stonework facade that is the castle parapet at the top of the scepter. And he holds it up and he says, "I've never feared that it would consume me because I was raised from my birth to handle such an item. The first generation of my clan to take power was," and he motions to the wall as you continue walking, and you can see that, it's kind of materialized into a dwarven woman who's got unlike all of the other kings who have been depicted in scenes of battle, the woman is depicted sitting on the edge of a little riverbank with her feet hanging over the bank of the river and her hand dipped into the water. She's got deep red hair that's very long and flowing, and she has on shoulder armor and sort of not quite fine armor, if you will, but not traveler's armor either. It's nice enough to belong to a warrior, not nice enough to belong to someone royal. And he says, "This is my grandmother. Her name is Acadia. Do you know the surname that she took? Have you heard of her?"
No, I'm unfamiliar, although it is a beautiful name.
This is Acadia the Giver. And she actually has a second image in the Hall of Reflection. And as he continues walking with you, her image shimmers, and now you can see her holding cupped hands with water in them. And then it shimmers again, and a dire wolf is drinking from her hands. And he says, "Acadia realized something that the previous kings of Udril did not. Acadia realized that when wolves hunt together, they do not treat each other as friends. They do not treat each other as family. They treat each other as allies. And they form a loose confederation that allows the uniqueness of each wolf to strengthen the whole, instead of diminishing from it or fighting against some homogeneous sense of equality and genericness. Each strength is accounting for the weakness of another. And by functioning in this way, a wolf pack can hunt with zero conflict, even with an alpha at its head, standing as its king or queen. And so she went on a journey, basically a pilgrimage, and personally spoke with each of these 3 kings who were serving at this time. And on that journey, she encountered a black dragon who gave to her a small scepter. This scepter.
Jeb gives a big grin on his face.
And he said that it was her resilience in the face of all of this conflict to go and visit each king rather than discounting any one of them as right or wrong that proved to him that she was worthy to hold this item. And with it, she was able to unite the people of Udril. And since then, Clan Lupus has ruled over this kingdom. And when my father was born, he was raised with a healthy respect for the difference between the sword and the scepter, and which was appropriate at each time. And he passed on that knowledge to me. The scepter is a ceremonial instrument, and so I've never feared that it would consume me, because the pantomime and the ritual of court dress is the outer wall of a king's castle. It is the sword that is the inner wall of his castle. The sword is the resort. When the ceremony fails, it is our swords, our knives, and he gives a little grin as the image flashes to one more of Acadia, and now Acadia is riding that dire wolf with a spear in one hand and the scepter in the other, and sometimes our teeth. Would you like to see it? And he holds out the rod to you.
I am tempted to. Jeb kind of like holds his hand out, but kind of like with the curiosity of a wizard who is like, oh yes, please, very much so.
Right.
But he like pauses for a second. Are you sure it's okay?
Only the scepter itself will know that.
So, are you familiar with the Sermon of Dices?
We jump back over to Zothkug, Owlin,
I'm
and
loving
Fox,
rascal.
I'm loving this.
who are about to go and join the jester. He sits across from you holding a small leather-bound journal in his hand. And he says, I hope you've brought me something good for my birthday, with a wink at Zothkug.
He hands him the balloons he bought.
These are lovely. And he takes the balloons and he like ties one around his wrist and ties another around the other wrist so that each hand has a little balloon decorated on it. And he takes the others and he says, everybody make a wish. And he lets go of them and they float up towards the sky. Well, those are lovely decorations and they've set the tone wonderfully. But how about an exchanging of gifts? And he closes the small leather-bound journal he's holding, and you can see a very, very small leather stamp inset. And Owlin, it's your keen artificer's eyes that first pick out a rod breaking over an anvil stamped on the binding of this book.
Alan will look at Fox and like give him like a short nod, like with the intent of communicating, like that's legit, like that's it.
Fox sees this nod and he sees it as he's got the goods.
Sweet.
I'm like, okay. Well, you know, it's a beautiful day, not a cloud in sight. So we know we had to give you your favorite present. And I go ahead and dip into my bag and pull out another book.
I wonder what
It
it could
is
be.
also leather bound, with a simple leather. But quickly you can tell that there is a stamp on it of a smiling mask. A little lopsided. Maybe a little hastily done. Who knows?
Yeah.
And I hand it over to him.
He takes it and you reach for the journal he's holding, but he holds it away with one hand while the other hand flips open the book so he can confirm the contents, flips through a couple pages, and then he just bursts out laughing. He goes, "That's a great one." He closes it and he hands you the journal. And he says, "You told no one of our visit, correct?"
No one except for our
I would
party.
not want... Yeah, I would not want rumors of, untoward activities about
No, of
either of,
course.
our groups
I'm going to
to
quickly
be
just
surfacing.
put that book away.
And he does likewise. Like, you almost
Yeah.
mirror each other's motions. Like, I'm gonna stash that away. He says, "Well then, I feel it's been a pleasure doing business with you." And as he says it's been a pleasure doing business with you, you hear overhead a small sizzling noise. And you look up and you see something. It's far above you, like way up in the air, but it's like a small stone something that's glowing orange as it's in like an arcing trajectory over the area you're in, and it's sizzling just a little bit, and then it winks out of your view overhead, and the jester too is looking up at it like, what is that? And it winks out of existence, and suddenly when you talk, no sound comes out. And you hear no sound at all. The sound of the wind
I'm
gone. The sound of
wide-eyed.
footsteps gone.
Yeah.
The jester looks at you and he points at you like, like, did you do that?
Yeah, Alan immediately is gonna take out his artificing stuff and attempt to tinker with one of the ball bearings that he has to like do his thing where he can make it like create a noise, like make some sort of nonverbal noise. He's gonna just try to make like almost like a warning blare, like a He's gonna
Is
try
he
to
able
do
to?
that.
Does it work?
Let's see. Yes,
Okay.
it actually does succeed.
Okay.
Like he looks visibly relieved when he like starts
Yeah.
doing it, and he pauses, and he like kind of like at a point where normally he would maybe mess up or like freeze, but then
Yeah.
he okay, I got it, like
So,
that kind of
Alan, you feel the magic working. You have done everything right,
thing.
but you don't hear anything.
Alan's gonna look at the rest of the party and be like give a shake head, like, oh no, this is bad, we should leave.
I'm pantomiming like, do you have another way out?
The jester shakes his head and throws up his hands, like he's equally shocked with you guys. He like, I have no idea. And then he like looks around and he like shrugs again, and he starts to go over and like tries to pull like a branch off of a hedge.
I was gonna say, Alan's gonna try to barrel through hedges. Like he's not gonna try to he's gonna try to leave, but not through an existing exit. He's gonna try to just like shoulder force his way through to make another way out.
Great. At this point, we're going to talk about the hedge mechanic.
Okay.
So I have what's called a ladder of consequences here. Each time you attempt to make it closer to the exit of the maze, you're going to roll, whoever's leading the party is going to roll a survival check against the ladder of consequences. There are 12 stages before you've reached the end of the maze. Each time you fail, you hit the next consequence. So if you succeed, nothing bad happens. If you fail, we increment up the level of consequences of things that can go wrong in this maze. So Alan's attempt to barrel through the first layer of the hedge is going to mean that he's leading the party. So Alan, I'd like you to roll a survival check against the ladder of consequences here. And the first DC to beat is 8.
16.
Okay, so you barrel through the hedge, and you kind of get a feel as you're in the hedge that it's a little thicker to one side, and so you're able to avoid a dead end by not going that way. And you like burst out into the next one, and there's the tunnel stretching ahead of you. The jester looking at Fox is like, he like is kind of pantomiming like, me running with you, like, can I come with you? I'm scared. And okay, Fox is circling his hand that the jester can go, and so the jester jumps into pursuit, and you silently, not hearing your footsteps, not hearing your breath, not even hearing the pounding of your own pulse, begin sprinting after Alan through the hole he's made and the small stretch of straightaway that he's now approaching in the maze. We cut back to Jebediah Peppermint, who's talking to the king. Jeb has asked the king if he knows about did you ask him about specifically the sermon, or just if he knows of Dicey's?
I asked if he was familiar with the sermon of Dicey's.
I know many of the sermons of Dicey's. Dicey's was a tonitress in this cathedral.
Well, I'm only familiar with one. And the one that I'm familiar with, I procured from a very disturbing place. And it speaks of a rod of 7 segments. And one of them looks very familiar or similar to the one that you carry. Which is why I was curious about whether you were worried about being consumed by it. Because that's what it's, the sermon speaks of it requiring one of great resilience. And I have to appreciate the confidence in your answer, because I appreciate your honesty, your majesty, and your candor. And I'm going to be honest, like I'm a very simple, lowly, dirt. And I don't know what kind of expectations I had coming here and having the chance to meet you, but and you should know that I'm not the type to try to sweet talk my way or butter anybody up. I'm a pretty straight shooter. I'm very impressed by you. You're nothing like I would have expected of a king.
I take that as a compliment.
And it's intended as one, because the stories that I've heard is that kings tend to be full of themselves and high and mighty and seeing themselves as over others. But the respect and care that you show for your people and even for your guests is anyway, I'm rambling. The sermon not only speaks of the rod and the different parts, but it talks about an order that's bent on keeping the one true rod broken and divided. And that order was responsible for my grandfather's murder. He was onto something. And the possessions that were stolen of mine, and again, I don't hold that against you at all. The possessions of mine were his life's work and his legacy, which is why I'm so adamant to get them back.
We know something of legacy in this kingdom, and we will not stop until we have found your things.
I appreciate that. Have you ever met Garlel? Because I think you'd like him.
I have not.
And I think he'd like you.
I should like to meet him very much one day.
I know where he is, and have met him once.
The king's eyes sharpen, and he stops walking, and you realize that you've been continuing to walk as you've spoken, and several generations of past kings have passed by on the walls, and you stand now at the 2 doors at the end of the Hall of Reflection. And his eyes sharpen, and he looks at you, and he says, "The avatars still walk?"
They do.
Then what of the darkening?
Is there a way... We've lost an avatar. The avatar of my people. The Order killed him. And my friends and I have had a bit of a falling out. I'm sure you've heard the rumors in Tumbleweb.
In particular, I've heard many of them recently.
Yeah. I leave it completely to you on whether you trust my word or not. I figure you have the wisdom to discern that yourself.
The king holds up a hand to stop you from speaking for a second, and he gives you, like, it almost feels like you're being x-rayed by his eyes. He stares so deeply at you that for a second you're not sure if he's looking at you or through you, or if he's totally spaced out and isn't even part of the conversation anymore.
Can I make an intelligence check to see if he's using some sort of rod magic on me?
Sure. Yeah, so roll an intelligence arcana.
Yeah, that's a big fat 24.
Ooh.
And so I don't mind if my use of the rod and its intelligence amplification reflects back. Like if my eyes show steely as well because of this or something.
So one, you're pretty sure that you're not doing anything visibly different from how you would normally do things. And two, you're pretty sure he's not using any magic. You're
Interesting.
pretty sure he's just literally like kind of sizing you up and trying to figure out if he thinks you're genuine or not. After what feels like a painfully long time, but is really only about 20 or 30 seconds.
I drop my poker face and just relax all of my face muscles, and Jeb kind of just postures such that he's not hiding any intentions.
Another 20 or 30 seconds go by, and then he says, I believe you're telling me the truth. And he pushes open the door the door on the right, and you pass with him into what seems like a sort of humble dormitory. There are a number of cot-style beds, like bunk beds, along one wall. There are a bunch of bookshelves and working desks on the other wall. The room is not very wide. It's about 3 floors tall with lofts. So there are like small wooden ladders that you can climb up to get to each loft, and then each loft has a line of bunk beds in it. And then the other wall has tall bookshelves with a small wooden ladder that rolls across them, and then it has little work desks at the foot of those bookshelves. And on the other end of this room, maybe another 30 shins of walking, is an unmarked, sturdy wooden door. And when you get there, he just continues walking and pushes it open. You see as you pass through this room where you haven't spoken and he hasn't spoken, that there are several people wearing dark robes who are either asleep or at work at the desks. One of them is up on the ladder pulling out a book. Like, there are some people in here, and they seem kind of scholastic looking to you. Like, they don't seem like guards or anything like that. They just seem like kind of, I don't know, religious bookie people. But he pushes open this door, and you walk through it with him. And now you find yourself in a dark stone cylinder that is lit by nothing. And so when the door shuts behind you, it's pitch dark, except that you have superior dark vision and he has superior dark vision. And so each of you can see fairly fine. And there's a spiral staircase that goes up and down. And the king begins leading you down the staircase. We cut back to the hedge maze where Owlin is leading the charge. Fox and Zothkug hot on his heels, and the jester right behind Fox, running silently through the maze. I'm going to roll a tension die. Okay. As you're running, Owlin, you trip. It doesn't hurt you, but you fall to the ground and kind of roll and come to a skidding stop. You have found yourself at a T intersection in the hedge, and so you can go left and you can go right.
Can he barrel through it forwards?
Like, just jump to his feet and continue trying to barrel through it?
Yeah.
Sure. Roll survival.
His strat is basically if there's a convenient quick juke way to keep moving forward, he just is like trying to take the straightest path to out of there.
Okay.
What do you want me to roll?
Roll survival. The DC this time is 10.
7.
Okay.
Aw.
You attempt to barrel through the hedge again after like pulling yourself to your feet, but this time, I mean, these are like worked hedges, and so they're very thick and like well tended and stuff, and you don't have the momentum, and so you kind of bounce off, and you actually scratch your shoulder a little bit for 1 hit point of damage as you just kind of like bounce off the hedge and you're not able to get through. You get the sense like sometimes you get that like feeling that you're being watched. You have that feeling.
Yeah.
You have that vibe that something is watching you.
Alan is gonna like try to signal to the rest of the group, like, like we're being watched kind of signal.
I'm gonna roll a perception check.
Okay, Fox, roll your perception check at disadvantage because you can't hear. One of your perceptions doesn't work.
Fair enough. Oh, I don't need it. I got a non-nat 20, baby.
Nice, with disadvantage. Good work. Fox, looking around, you can see a single person way off to your right wearing the uniform of a private security goon who it almost looks like they had actually walked past this intersection and then turned back and did a double take because they spotted you. but they're looking right at you. You lock eyes with the two of them, and suddenly they just start sprinting flat out towards you down the stretch. They're not going to make it to you like this round, quote unquote. But
I'm going to tap the closest people on the shoulder facing opposite
okay,
and just start booking it the opposite way.
okay.
I'll follow.
The jester's behind you, so he follows you too.
And yeah, Alan will follow as well. Like, yeah, if he's not opposed to Fox taking the lead, Fox looks like he knows where they need to go now.
Okay, Fox, I would like you to roll the next survival check to navigate.
You got this, bub. Told you.
The DC is 12.
Well, I don't give up about the DC because I got a nat 20, baby.
Heyo!
Whoa!
You actually are able to. Well, it doesn't matter how you navigate. Do you want to add the flavor, or do you want me to add the flavor?
Yo, I am like gonna just start sprinting. I'm going through. I am like peeking through the edges of the hedge mage, like looking at the little tiny branches and getting that. I'm like, okay, there it is. I'm just gonna immediately skid, take a right, notice that that's the left, that hooks around, that everybody thinks is a dead end, but it's not. Hook that left. I'm just gonna go right through that and then see that there's a little tiny little gap in between two branches. Just literally enough to fit a knife. And I'm just gonna try to slam right through that. I'll do another roll if I have to.
No, you're fine. For that nat 20, you get both of those. So
Yeah.
you basically are making it two like turns or two tiers of the maze.
Let's
By
go.
the time Alan goes through that knife's edge gap, it is no longer a knife's edge gap.
Alan just barrels through.
Same with Zob.
Alan,
Yeah.
as you sort of break through this corner, this knife's edge, you see the hedge just where your like moments ago where your head was. The hedge dents inwards as something thuds into it, some projectile or something like that smacks into the hedge.
Once again, Alan's gonna like try to hand signal to communicate, basically like projectiles, like things are coming at us.
I
I'm
have
not
no
paying
idea what he's
attention.
saying.
I'm looking where to go.
Oh dang!
Okay, so Fox, are you still leading?
I guess that's
You're
how
in
this is
front.
gonna run. Yeah.
Sure, roll another survival check.
Yeah, that's what I figure. After rolling the nat 20, this is what
This-
I figure.
This one's a 14
Is it a
DC.
1?
Oh, I got a 6.
Oh no. You got a 6. And so you're like leading, you've got all this great momentum, you turn around and you run right into a dead end. You like smack into the hedge, you take 1 hit point of damage as it like scratches up your shoulders a little bit. You turn around and a second private security goon has joined the one who's chasing you, but they're not quite in combat range yet. So they now, because you're looking towards them, you can see that one of them has a handgun drawn and the other one has a short sword in each hand, and they're running towards you. They kind of like, you know, they seem like they're tensing up to slow from dashing to running and attacking in the next round. Like you get the vibe that maybe if you miss another one of your turns or something, they might catch up and you might be in combat.
Just a vibe.
We jump back over to the cathedral where Jebediah and the king are walking down a spiral staircase. So your grandfather.
Yeah, he was a sheriff in some of the outer parts of the West, and was working on a way to use magic, even after the darkening. And he had some designs and some implements, and I had been looking for him, but when I found him, he had already been dead.
I'm sorry for your loss.
I appreciate that. But we were able to bury him, but his devices produced magical effects. Went underground. I'm still kind of working that out, but that's what's been stolen. But the more important thing is more important than my grandfather is the rod, the Order of the Broken Scepter that did it. They're trying to keep the world in the dark. They're, I believe, behind the darkening, although I don't have all the pieces. And they're extracting the life essence, and thus attempting to kill the avatars. They have them bound and chained. we found Garlel in the ruins of the Eos Lore Foundation. He was shackled to the ground with arcane sigils around him, just draining his power. And while we saved his life, he's not doing too well. And is like what I suspect a shadow of his former self. But he's safe. We got him out, and he's in a safe location now. But so my friends and I, we've been trying to handle this ourselves, because wherever we turned, it felt like the order was against us. One step ahead of us, all was on our tail.
Perhaps ruining your reputation?
Yeah. I mean, if I'm being perfectly honest, we haven't had the best contacts and resources, and so we've had to do some not so honorable things, to more out of desperation than anything, to even be able to stand a chance against them. So I'm gonna, I'll take the responsibility of some of the stuff we've done, but they definitely didn't have any problem adding insult to injury. But our intentions have always been pure. I would like an ally, because up until now, we've been Jeb kind of just hangs his head. It's such a heavy load, sir. There's too much. And what we're fighting against is so big and ancient and has its tendrils everywhere.
Can you hold this for me? And he tosses you the scepter as if it's like no big deal at all. Just like quick pop, tosses it up in the air. It swings across. It's floating through midair. You catch it. You're holding it. And you realize that you've come to a huge steel door at the base of this staircase. And the king uses both hands to turn a circular sort of crank on the door. And he pushes it open. And he says, "You can hang on to that one. It's not real." And then you walk into the Crypt of Kings with him that sits beneath the Cathedral of Gomteus. And he says, "But what's important about that one is that when you hold a scepter in Udril, you never walk alone." And this room, which is underground and therefore dark as the blackest night, is lit by a bunch of pinprick rubies and amber that kind of dot the ceiling. And so it looks like you're walking under a field of stars, even though you're way underground. And to each side, right and left, there are 7 statues of those same kings who, on top of the castle, you can see them with their weapons drawn and in their prime, undergoing battle. In these statues, the kings and queens are in their dotage at their oldest, each of them held up by the cane that they kind of hunch over in front of them. And behind each of those, presumably, is the resting place of that king or queen. And as you walk into this chamber with him, your voice is echoing through the strange, starry-looking void. The king says, "I will ally with you in this. Your goal is to unite all the pieces of the rod. Tell me I'm wrong."
You are not wrong.
Well then, you'll need allies, because the rod is a little too powerful for any one creature to unite on their own. There was a time where my father attempted the same quest, and while he couldn't find all the pieces, there was a second which he discovered in the holdings of another of our clans. And when he visited and attempted to unite the pieces, we are builders all, he was unable to manage the power of the 2 pieces of the rod, and it nearly killed him. Luckily, the one that he showed up attuned to is sort of all about not dying. And his resilience was able to carry him through the experiment. But I feel confident that you'll need allies. You will need a separate wielder for each of the pieces of the rod. And they will need to work together, not as a team, not as a family, but as allies. And again, you get that sort of wolfish vibe coming off of Tactus the Unyielding. And you've reached the end of the Crypt of Kings. And at the end of it, there is a large round chamber. He says, "This is the resting place of the Tonitris, and we will not enter as we are not priests of the Gamteun order. But we don't need to enter for what we're here for." And he turns around and his voice echoes unyielding through this cavernous room, this Crypt of Kings. He says, "Kings of Udril, I need my staff." And the Kings of Udril, the statues, each snap to attention, the years falling off of their age as each of them picks up the scepter and holds it against their left shoulder in a ready position, the way a soldier might hold a spear. And the one closest to you on your left, which would be the right as you walk into the room, the scepter breaks, explodes, shatters, all of the stone pieces fly off of it, and you can see in its place what must be the real scepter. And as the king walks over to it, he reaches towards it, and you can see almost like a shimmering wave of energy coming off the scepter as he wraps his hands around it, and he lifts it, and he says, "There is war at my borders, and I cannot join you on your quest until I have protected my people. But rest assured that when the time comes to pull the pieces of the rod together, you will have Udril's aid." And as he turns to continue walking, you hear a low growling rumble, and you see what must have been the direwolf companions of each of the kings and queens who have passed on step out of the crypt where they guarded their companions and form like a V behind you. And he says, "Because in Udril, when you carry a scepter, you never walk alone." We jump back over to Fox, Owlin, and Zothkug, who are barreling through the maze and have run into a dead end. They can see some people running towards them, and someone's got to take the lead and try and get you guys free of combat. Who's going to step into the lead?
Zoth.
Zothkug's doing it. Roll a survival check.
15.
All right. With a 15, you are able to navigate one step closer to escapes. Tell me how you do it.
So Zothkug, unlike Owlin and Fox, will follow the path out instead of trying to barrel through hedges.
Okay. So you're just like, I'm pretty sure it's this way, you guys.
Yeah.
Just takes off like a power walk.
He's running.
Okay.
He sees Fox ran into a dead end, grabs his arm, yanks him the way he's going, and then runs around the corner, hopefully breaking line of sight with the gun.
Great. I'm going to roll the 2 tension die that are in the tension pool as time has passed. All right. Owlin and Fox, I would like each of you to make a survival check with a DC of 9 to stay with the group because it's silent and you're all trying to communicate which way you're going and stuff like that. So we're trying to avoid you getting split up.
I have once again rolled a nat 20 in a situation where I didn't necessarily need to.
Nice.
Nice.
I just rolled a 13. All right.
Owlin's able to let me save the jester. He's gonna get lost or whatever, and so you pull him back into the path with you, and you are following the path, and you're maintaining your distance. You can see the 2 security goons in the distance, but you're pretty sure they're not gaining on you. And so far, Zothkug hasn't led you astray. Zothkug, why don't you roll another survival check for us?
That is a 14.
Okay, with a 14, you make a turn. And at first, it looks like you're going the right way, but Owlin, you recognize the turn. You're like, we've been here before. So at some point, you've crossed back on yourself. Owlin will try to. Owlin waves his hands and tries to communicate. Eventually, the group is able to come to a stop, and the pursuers are going to roll to see if they can catch up to you. Incredibly, they don't. They try to follow you around the turn, but they go the right way just because they assume you're going to go the right way. And then it takes them a second to realize, wait, they went the other way. And they turn to come back and follow you. And so they're the same distance back.
To once again try to confuse them, Alan will once again try to barrel through a hedge to just go just go straight. I don't care whether the hedges exist or not.
Exceptional. Alan, roll your survival check.
18.
Yeah, easy peasy. Alan barrels through the hedge to make some more headway in space, and you both follow him through the opening. You lost the jester somewhere along the way. You're not sure where he went or if he's okay, but Everard the jester has vanished from the trio of you that are running. Alan, you want to make another survival check and keep running?
I'm going back.
Yeah, I would say Alan.
We're all. I want to go back too.
I guess if the other two are going back, Alan will also.
Alan just keeps going.
Where'd everybody go?
They were right here, I swear.
Zoth tries to
Alan
wave
will
to
be
Alan.
with those guys. Yeah. Okay. He does. He in his head mentally, Alan is like, fine. Like, all right.
Whoever's leading the search, because you guys have just turned around. I guess probably Fox said he was going back first. So Fox, roll your survival to see if you can find him.
Not nat 20.
Not nat 20. You are able to find him this round. It takes you a little bit back into the maze because he's made a different turn, but he also has doubled back looking to try and find you guys, and so you're able to like group up with him.
I'm grabbing him by the collar.
Grab the Jester by the-
Josh.
Yes.
Can I tie a rope around all of us, or at least give us no, not tie it, but like give us all a piece of rope to hold?
You can, but it will take a turn of like not moving because you're gonna have to tie the knot around people. You know what I mean? Like you have to stand still to.
No, he's saying like just throw it to us.
Just hang on.
Oh, like toss the end of a rope and you're each there. Yes, that's fine.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, you toss a rope to everybody. It takes maybe a little while for you all to like get your hands on it, but it just costs you some running speed. I'm going to give them another chance to catch up as you've doubled back and then thrown a rope between you. And this time, one of them does. Short Swords guy makes it to the back of your group, which right now is Alan, since you guys had turned around to find the Jester. So Alan, you see him coming. You have a chance to defend yourself, whatever, but he is going to just run right up to you and try to hit you with his short swords.
Alan's gonna try to grapple him.
Okay.
Like just tackle him, basically.
Wrestling.
It works. He rolled a nat 1. I don't know what's up with my dice tonight. But yeah, so you
Keep it
grapple
up,
him and
Josh's
tackle him to
dice.
the ground. So he attacks you with one of his two short swords, and you just like grab him by both wrists so he can't, slice you and like twist him to the ground, basically.
Yeah, that my goal is just to make him go prone so we can have more time to run away.
Yep, you've got him pinned.
Cool.
Okay, so you're just going to leave him there and keep running? Okay,
Yes.
great.
Like it's like, okay, you're prone now. Bye.
Sure.
Like
Someone else take the lead because Alan was grappling. So who's gonna forage forwards for you? I guess Zothkug, right? Or
Can I
Fox?
kick him where the sun
Yeah.
don't shine as we pass?
Sure. Roll a d4 of damage.
Okay.
And
I got a 2.
Okay. 2 damage to him and and a d8 of psychic damage.
A D3. 1 damage each.
Zothkug will take the lead.
Did you say 1 damage each, Wash?
Uh-huh.
Zothkug takes the lead. Roll your survival check.
13.
13. Okay. Zoth, you are able to get the group back on the path. The DC was 12. So you get back on the path to the way out. I'm assuming, are you doing what you did before where you're like, I'm just
Yes.
going to follow the path that is the way. So you're following the way out and navigating through and making some progress. There's one guy who was pinned and left on the ground, and then one pursuer who had the handgun who did not reach you and so is still somewhere out there running after you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what you know right now.
Cool.
I'm going to roll the next tension die. As you're running, Fox, your robe snags on one of the bushes and it like tears a little bit, but also it like yanks you back. Make a dexterity save to basically keep your feet so that you can keep sprinting with the group.
Yo, I'm just saying, if the DC's above a 20, I'm gonna be upset because I got a 23.
The DC is not above a 20. Okay, so you succeed and basically keep your feet, and you can either pull your robe free or like try and twist free but lose a little bit of speed. Which are you gonna do?
Man, this shit's more expensive than cashmere. I'm untangling that.
Okay, you like stop and slowly untangle it very gently, and then like flat out take off sprinting again as soon as you're done. And you go running through the hedge maze again. We cut back over to the cathedral. Jeb and Tactus the Unyielding are walking towards the staircase that leaves the King's Crypt. What are you thinking?
I would be remiss to not reveal this. And Jeb opens up the robe and he holds out the iron rod.
As you hold out the iron rod and the king is holding the stone castle rod, each as they get closer and closer to each other, you hear and feel like a crackle of energy between the two of them. You have no idea whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, but you like hear and feel like this little kind of crackling, sizzling noise between the two of them. And the king says, You are indeed trying to unite the pieces of the Rod of Seven Parts, if you have found one. Where was that one?
In an ancient cave ruled by the ancient aboleths, full of modern machinery, building a autonomic army, and it's not good. It's powered by the life energy of the avatars. It's, yeah.
Tactus's hand is like white knuckled on the scepter that he's holding. You have seen the aboleths personally?
I don't know if it was... No, I do know. It wasn't an image. They tried to scare us with illusions of themselves, but when we plummeted, we found ourselves in the center of their lair. There were, I believe I counted 3, and we traded blows. Alwyn took a really hard hit, and but we made it deep into their fortress, where their machinery was. I remember a map with different energy lines that connected certain places. Your kingdom, no, it wasn't here. One of them was in the Eos Lore Foundation. That's where we met Garlo. Another was in the Umbral Sea. And that's where we're heading next. There were others, but I can't remember where they were off the top of my head.
You'll want to pack a jacket.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. And I kind of click my claws, and I'm like, I don't like hard-packed dirt, permafrost. But the thing is we're having to decide. We need the pieces of the rod to stop them. But
one moment, the king pushes open the door to the dorm of the scholastics, and you walk through silently again, this time flanked by 12 dire wolves who just are like casually strolling along behind you. The Ember don't react. It seems like it's no big deal. Like probably the king takes these wolves out to feed them and let them hunt and stuff every now and then. You just stroll on through, and then eventually the door swings shut behind the final dire wolf. So it takes like an extra 10 minutes after you walk into the Hall of Reflection before everyone's through and the door swings shut, and the king says, "Okay, go ahead."
But we have to save the avatars first. We have to prioritize them. We can find the rods later, but if the avatars are drained, and now the Order knows, they know that we're after them, then I'm assuming that's going to escalate their timetable. Yeah, I don't. So we're heading there, and to the Umbral Sea next. We have 2 pieces. Zothkug has another piece of the rod, but he hasn't proven himself. He hasn't attempted to prove himself to it. Although he's Zothkug, he'll be fine. He's made for that thing. I feel like I keep saying to you how appreciative and I am, and you keep saying that it's unnecessary. But considering that you have a war on your western border, as you say, I'd like to offer you a gift as for being you. In 2 days' time, I'll be able to answer any question. And I'd like to give that answer to you. Or that question to you.
Answer any question about your party, and he holds up like his piece of the rod and he goes, "Answer any question."
Answer any question. Wait, does yours let you do that too?
No. That is a magnificent gift.
Mine is the Rod of Intelligence, which is, and he flexes his muscles, which is definitely and obviously my forte. And it affords me to speak with the kings of the past 72 ages.
Let me stop you right there for just a moment. And he points down at your arm and he goes, "Strength isn't here." And he points at your heart and he goes, "Strength is here."
I understand that.
And he takes your hand that's holding the fake castle scepter, and he holds that one up in the air and he goes, and also here. And as he raises your hand with the scepter in it up in the air, the wolf closest to you snarls and leaps forward so that it's standing right next to you, teeth bared, snarling at nothing. And then as you lower your hand, it sits docile again.
Ooh.
Anyway, go on.
It affords me to ask a question and to benefit from the intelligence and wisdom of all of the kings of all of the past ages. I've only used it once and it hasn't let me down. But I'm offering that question to you. Perhaps, and I haven't tested this yet, maybe even if we connect our rods, you would be able to ask it to them directly. But I'm not sure how that works.
Nor am I. I think we would need an artificer of significant power and understanding.
And we have one of those.
The king like blinks for a second. He goes, "The naked one?"
He would say he is appropriately clothed, but yes.
He had a mechanist's glint in his eye. And for the first time, the king is like a little bit laughing, but also you get the sense that he knows way more about your group from that dinner than he let on. Like he has probably the ability to read people pretty dang well.
And at this point, Jeb is just he has succumbed to the wave. Like he's not surprised. He is very thoroughly impressed by Tactus. But I offer you this gift if you'll have it.
It is a magnificent gift, and I will accept.
Then I plan to stay here with you for the next 2 days until the time comes, because it's dependent upon the lunar cycle.
That's good. It will probably take us 2 days to return your things, unless, we find them quickly. So that's good that you're planning to stay. It'd be hard to mail them to you. He says, "Let me explain a few things about this gift." And he points again at the fake scepter that you're holding. And he goes, "You can only do this once because the smell will rub off once it's been used. But these wolves have been trained to," and he points at, like, he says these wolves as if it's, like any other wolf. He's pointing at like the 12 companions of the past kings and queens of Udril. These wolves have been trained on the scent that this rod contains. You throw this at someone, and all you got to do is wait about 3 minutes. And it doesn't matter how far or near to Udril you are, because the great thing about dire wolves is that their sense of smell has nothing to do with magic. So if you mark somebody with this, like, the clock begins ticking. So, give them some time to travel if you're in a different country or whatever. But like, when you walk with a scepter in Udril,
you never walk alone.
That's right. We cut back to the hedge where Owlin, Zoth, Fox and the Jester are again running for their lives. I think Zoth in the lead, if that's correct. Yeah. So Zoth, go ahead and make your survival check. DC to beat is 16.
15. So close.
15. All right. Zoth, you are. I'll give you two options. You can accept personal consequences that are worse or team consequences that are less worse. So like the personal consequences that are worse mean that you'll continue running, but something bad happens to you. Team consequences will slow the whole team down, but it'll be less of a bad thing that happens to you in the interim.
I'll take the personal.
Okay. As you
way to lay it down for the team.
As you careen around a corner of the track, still running, as hard as you can, the two leaves that you're carrying with you get caught on the edge and shred. Like just into little fibers and kind of fall useless to the ground as you're running. It's almost like you probably put out a hand to like steady yourself on the hedge, and didn't realize like they're still in my hand, and so it like kind of shreds them right there.
Yep.
But because because Zoth like takes the hit there, it doesn't slow the group down because everyone else is following Zoth. So Zoth continues running and the group continues following Zoth, and you guys make it another step closer to freedom. At this point. Okay, the other people who are in the maze don't catch up to you this run. So go ahead and make your next survival check to try and get closer to the edge of the maze.
Come on, dice. That's not good. That's a 7.
All right. Oh. This time Zoth literally does navigate you into a dead end. Oh. So you hit that dead end and you hear a noise, which is the first time you've heard a noise this whole time. Just as you hit the dead end and you come to a stop, you hear a popping noise, and all of a sudden all sound is back, and you can hear yelling voices. I think they went that way. You get the sense that there are several search parties looking for you, and one of them is on the other side of this dead end. They don't seem to have noticed that you've run into the dead end, but you can hear them coordinating with each other. All right, I'm going to go east. Let's send you two to the west side, and let's see if we can get someone else to come from the other side of this dead end.
Okay, Owlin's going to do some magical tinkering on the ball bearing that he previously had making sound. I'm sure that actually when he comes out of it, does that mean that suddenly burp, 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 the alarm sound that he was trying to make on his ball bearing comes back?
Chat grants
does
a
it
boon,
last?
and Owlin's reflexes are so quick that he realizes and is able to switch it off.
What he wants to do with it is he changes it to just to emit light.
Okay.
He can make it to emit light, and he's going to throw it in the opposite direction of the direction that he believes that is the way out that the group needs to go. He's throwing it that way, and then he's going to try to start leading the group booking at the opposite direction.
Okay. Owlin throws his lit ball bearing the other direction and tries to lead the group. I now need you to make stealth check, whoever is leading. So a stealth and a survival.
Ooh.
Okay. Oh no, this is not good because Alan's not good at stealth, but here we go. Stealth is a 5, but survival is a 7.
Oh man, clutch moment. Really pull it off there.
Yeah.
Alan is so caught up in like the tinkering magic that he was doing that he sort of forgets his like tracking sensibilities and his military, skills. And so he just plows off in the other direction, and like, maybe because you've been running in silence, so you haven't had to think about it for a while. But he like, bounces off the hedge and it rustles and stuff moves. And the jester is like, "Are we going this way?" And like yells after him. And Alan's like, "Yeah." And it's like this whole thing. And you can hear the people on the other side of your dead end go, "Climb over. They're right over here." And you see the hedge begin shaking as you round the corner and begin running for the exit. The Owlin is in the lead now running. So Owlin, go ahead and roll another survival and or stealth.
I will do survival first.
Okay.
What the heck is my rolls?
What the heck even is rolls?
You want to share?
I got a 5.
Ooh, a 5.
Stealth is a 1, but not a natural 1, just a 1. I need to stop rolling. Holy cow.
Oof.
Owlin. Okay, so Owlin rounds the corner and you guys are following him, and this time it's going to be different because he's had a couple minutes to like pull himself together, and instead Owlin plows into a family of 4 who are walking through the labyrinth. And there's there's a mom and a dad and 2 kids, and they all just in one pile of people go falling to the ground. Unfortunately, you're all holding a rope drawing you together. Zothkug and Fox and the Jester all need to make dexterity saves to avoid falling onto the group as well.
Oh, okay. I'm not falling on a fame. I got a non-nat 20 on that. Okay.
Okay. Zoth is pouting. Zoth got a natural 1.
He's the biggest of us.
Rolled a
They're gonna clothesline this family with the rope.
Yeah.
Do I roll with bonuses, or is it just straight?
Just
D20?
a straight D20 below a 10 confirms, or I should say a 10 or below confirms.
I got a 17.
Okay, so it's just a fail. So Zoth falls onto the pile as well. Fox like dives over them, like dolphin dives to the other side and does like a somersault to avoid landing on the group. And then the Jester, who was like, "What is that dive?" falls over you as well. So the 3 of you who fell each take 1 point of damage as you pile onto this family. And also the 2 kids burst out crying, and the parents are like, "What is going on?"
No.
And as all of that's happening, Fox, looking over your friends, you can see rounding the corner a group of 3 private security goons coming into view who are all armed with staves or short swords. You don't see any handguns in this group, but there are 3 of them, and they're racing towards you. You've got 1 round to do something, anything to stop them, or combat begins.
All right. I'm just gonna reach into my bag, little small bag in the back, and just handful of ball bearings and just chucking them, and then grabbing another handful and chucking them. And I'm immediately going to try to pick the family up and be like, "We have to go. We are leaving."
Alan, from like the bottom of this pile of people, you hear what sounds like rain falling, like just this kind of sound as Fox throws these ball bearings over your heads, and everyone tries to jump up. You do eventually make it to your feet. I'm going to give the 3 people who are pursuing, I'm going to give them some dexterity checks to avoid falling over. 2 of them trip, 1 of them does not. So one of them makes it to the group, and as you're standing up, they just rear back with a short staff and boom, try to bring it down on the jester who's on top of the pile of people. So they roll to hit the jester, and they hit him for maximum damage. They hit the jester right over the top of the head with the staff, and he doesn't fall unconscious, but like they clearly cleaned his clock. Like his eyes are a little unfocused, and he's dazed, and he's kind of staggering in place. Zoth and Alan, you're able to stand up because the jester is staggering in between you and this one person who is attacking you. And you now have 30 seconds to do anything as a... let's do Alan first.
Alan's going to once again go for the grappling, tackling strat, try to tackle the guy who just cleaned the clock of the jester.
Roll your grapple.
Dirty 20.
Ooh, he got a 19, so I was like, it's not going to be good, but you got a dirty 20. So it's a little bit of a tense grapple, but you are able to eventually overpower him and basically just force him onto the ground. So you have him pinned, or you're just trying to shove him to the ground and then keep going?
Once again, the goal is to shove him to the ground so that we can keep moving.
Great. So you're able to accomplish that while Fox is like talking to this family, like, we've got to go. And the family are like kind of confused and trying to figure out what to do. Zoth, you get to your feet. No particular issues. Do you want to do anything this round, or are you just going to head back for the exits?
Where are Fox and Alan?
Next to you.
Okay. Zoth will just head to the exit.
Okay. The family who Fox is picking up are like, it's this way out. And they like begin running out with you, and they're able to lead you to the exit. You make it to the exit of this labyrinth, and you rush out into an open field in the field district where like stuff is happening. Like, you know, people are on their horses riding around doing their thing. Yes?
Guards!
And one of the horsemen who is like galloping along, and it looks like he might have just been taking a horse out for an exercise, but he rears up his horse and turns towards you and rides over, and he says, "What's the matter?"
"We've been assaulted in the maze by armed men."
"Assaulted by whom?" And he like immediately jumps off of his horse, draws his club, and like kind of steps protectively in front of you, like looking towards the maze.
Alan will dramatically point back, and hopefully they're rounding the corner or something. He'll say, "By those goons!"
It's a family. It's like 2 kids, like, "Hi."
You all notice, as Alan says, "by those goons," and points dramatically backwards, that not only does nobody around the corner, but you don't hear anything inside the maze.
Well, we were being pursued by some goons.
All right. I'm going to immediately pull the guy aside. I'm like, "Listen, this is very important. We are guests of the king. We were just assaulted. Magic was used."
Yeah, the guard like takes all of this in, and without another word to you or listening to another word from you, pulls out a whistle and blows 3 short like whistles on it. And you hear, before you even see any people coming, you see 7 dire wolves come bounding up the field district towards you, and then running behind them as though they were not prepared for their wolves to be called into action. You see 7 dwarves trying to keep up with their dire wolves, still like strapping on their sword belts and stuff as they come racing towards you, like, you know, trying to see what's going on. The dire wolves, when they arrive, the man looks at them and he gives them a handful of like vocal sounds, like "yeah, that do," and then they immediately sprint off into the maze. And you, as soon as they cross through like the entrance of the maze, you stop hearing any noise from them as they rush into the maze, and like they look like they're snarling and doing stuff, but you don't hear anything.
I'm pointing at that.
As you may be able to notice, there's some sort of, I believe, charm or spell placed onto that area where no sound seems to be escaping. I believe they're using it in order to mask. They attempted to take us out without any witnesses, and I believe that was the strategy to keep anyone from hearing.
There does seem to be some peculiarities going on in this maze. And as he says that, he looks up towards the castle, and you're not sure what he's looking for at first until you realize that he's watching the walls, where a handful of people who have seen the commotion downstairs have like begun doing something. You can't even see what they're doing right now, but you can see 3 people doing something kind of frenzied on the top of the walls. Yes, Zothkug, you have a hand up.
Can I go over to the family and make sure that they are uninjured, and if they are injured, tend to their wounds?
Sure. You don't have any leaves with you, so you can do a medicine check.
I have med kits.
I would say Alan actually will do that as well. And if they are wounded, he has an ability that hasn't had an opportunity. No, he can't because there's no rod around. Never mind. Dang it.
Zoth has always has med kits on him, which I assume are okay since that's not magical.
Yep. Okay, so Zoth, then you're just expend 2 charges of the med kit, and you're able to get both people healed up, because it was 2 people who were hurt in the fall.
Okay, I'm going to turn back to the guard. Listen, I know this is a lot, but I don't think we're safe in the castle.
Oh, don't worry, we're not taking you to the castle. And you can see that the commotion has finished on the wall of the castle, and they're flashing mirrors in a couple of different directions. The guard says, "Get on the horse." And he helps the 3 of you onto his horse, which has no problem at all carrying you, like it's a war horse. He helps the 3 of you onto the horse, and then he kind of like, gives the horse something to eat and says something kind to it, and then whispers something in its ear. And he says, "We're taking you to the king." And the horse just gallops off towards
that is a
the east.
sturdy horse to carry Alan and Zothkug.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, Fox is kind of negligible in that scenario.
Yeah.
But
I'm
But
probably
to
like
carry-
sitting in the front, like the kids.
Still wearing your like fine robes.
It's a Chad horse. Dwarves have Chad horses.
Yeah.
yeah, I guess.
We cut back over to the Gomtean Cathedral, Domus Lunae, where you've reached the exit and you're in the atrium area, and you're kind of finishing up your conversation with the king. And so the king has explained to you how the scepter he gave you worked, so that you have basically like a one-shot kill everybody near you move. And he's again expressing his sort of he's committed to helping you, but he can't accompany you obviously because he needs to deal with this war. And now that you've told him the Aboleths are involved, he went and got like his piece of the Rod of 7 parts so he can keep it safe.
And like I was saying, if it isn't too much trouble, I know there's like a thing about casting spells in town, but your cousin's daughter, she can't walk, and Zoth was really wondering if he could cast a spell to help restore her, so that she can walk. He's able to do that, if with your permission, of course.
How about this instead? And he steps outside and he takes a little sheaf of parchment from one of his cavalrymen, and he begins writing you a writ of permission for you and your party to use magic within not just the clan holdings, but all of Udril. So like you have the king's writ to use magic wherever the heck you would like. It does not extend to openly carrying weapons in the holdings, but it does give you permission to cast magic. As he's writing this writ, however, you see like a weird glint of light across your face and the face of other people in the party. And one of the cavalrymen leans down and whispers something to the king. The king says, "It seems you'll get to give this to your party sooner than we thought." They recently came under attack and are being sent here by some of my guards.
What did Fox do this time?
The cavalrymen around, that big line of cavalry who were there when you were walking in, those cavalry, instead of snapping to like the ceremonial attention they did when you arrive, they are all now mounted, weapons drawn, and fanned out around the cathedral. So it's like the wall behind you is like it's a wall. And then in a semicircle around that wall are 4 lines, I should say, of cavalry arranged in ranks. And galloping up the boulevard toward you, literally riding over anybody in its way, is a warhorse carrying a barbarian, Aasimar, an orc, and in the front, like a little teeny, like human changeling or human-looking changeling, bringing your party up to the front. Yeah, I picture Zoth as like hands in the air, like woo!
I'm holding on for dear life.
And Alan's probably done this before, so
I say Alan's the one actually riding and steering the horse.
Alan's like being serious. Zoth is like, woo, and Fox is holding on for dear life.
The horse pulls up and everyone dismounts, and the king says, "So, tell me about your afternoon."
Oh, okay. Listen, this is a lot. Okay.
Hey, Fox.
So,
Fox. Everything on the table. Everything.
all right. we think we're being attacked by people who are there's a conspiracy, but it's real, and it's something. And there's these rods, and they're trying to keep them apart, and there's
Fox. Breathe, deep breath.
I already
Ready?
put that on the table. I'm talking about today.
Out.
Like what's going on?
We just got attacked by the goons. Sorry.
That's the private security goons, Your Majesty.
We think the ones mixed inside of your, not of course your private guard, but of your guard, your mercenaries might be mixed in with some of
Ooh, show him the ledger.
of the Aboleth's men. And I managed to get this, which should evidently prove that someone has stolen.
Greenvale
has stolen. I was trying to keep it a surprise. So there's always a story to it.
Now's the time for action, not for flourish.
The jester Everard, who had been forgotten about up until now, pokes his head out from where he had been like crammed beneath some saddlebags or something, like off to the side, like he was a last minute toss onto the horse. He like pokes his head out and he goes, "It's all in there, Your Majesty. It's true. It's true. It's all there." He like sort of awkwardly like untangles his legs from the harness, like falls on his back on the road.
I say Alan will dismount the horse and try to be the straightforward one in this scenario. This is evidence that Alex Greenvale, one of your sadly I misplaced trusted advisors, is working closely with the Rod of Seven with the Order of the Broken Scepter, as I'm sure that Jeb here has explained what their evil ends are.
This is a steep accusation. Let me see your evidence.
It's a book full of jokes. I'm gonna be so mad.
That would have been a great swap. I didn't think of it, but it would have been really funny.
I'm gonna hand it over to the king. I'm gonna at first I'm gonna kind of run up, and then I'm gonna like slow down, and I'm like kind of like straighten myself, and then I realize that this is a
King's like,
moment.
"It's a crisis, man. Give me the book."
as he's handing it over, Alan will say, "And we believe that this is evidence also that Alex Greenvale is responsible for the attack on us just now and the theft of Jeb's possessions."
As you say that, Alex Greenvale, flanked by a bunch of the King's Guard and mixed in private security goons, rides up and says, "I saw the mirrors. Is there some sort of crisis?" The king is flipping through the ledger book, not saying anything to her. Alex Greenvale's eyes go wide when she sees the king holding that ledger book, and she turns around and tries to gallop off. And
I would like to cast Hold Person on her.
Well, she's in the midst of a group of guards who are all confused by the move, and so there's some commotion, and that gives you plenty of time to cast Hold Person on her. As you're casting Hold Person, one of the private security goons goes, "He's using magic! Seize him! He's using magic!"
Yeah, I hold the small piece of iron, and it just like creates this bind around her. And then the other hand, he just like holds up the writ, and it just like unfolds in front of him.
And the king, who hasn't even looked up, goes, "He has my writ." And you get like waves of cold off the king. Like again, he's sort of demonstrating his name. As he flips through the ledger, his eyes get narrower and narrower and narrower. And Alex Greenvale is frozen in place. You can't really get any read on her. She can't move. But the private security goons are like they don't know what exactly is the right move to do.
Shifting uncomfortably.
Some of them are looking to ride off, and some of them are looking to stay in place. Eventually, some of them break, and about 18 of these private security goons begin riding off. And the king, without even looking up from his book, just goes, "Yep." And 7 of the dire wolves just take off. He goes, "Well, that was the wrong move." And he, for the first time, looks up from the book at the rest of the private security goons, and he goes, "The right move is dismounting." And they all hop off their horses and get down on the ground. And the king snaps the book shut and hands it to one of his dire wolves to eat. And then he steps over to Alex Greenvale, who is still frozen in place and hold personed. And he picks...
Did the horse run out from under her? Because the horse wasn't frozen.
No, because they couldn't actually move. Like, they were in the midst of
there was
a group
too
of
many
people.
horses.
Yeah.
It was too crowded.
So he walks over to her, his soldiers parting and making way for him, and the private security goons healthily chastised and standing still. He walks over to Alex Greenvale, grabs her by the scruff like you would with a dog, and like drags her down the boulevard. People are stopping and staring at what he's doing. He hasn't said a word to anyone. Drags her down the boulevard and motions something to the king's, like his men, the King's Guard, who are on top of the castle. They throw down a rope and he hangs her right there.
Whoa.
Like just literally loops a noose around her and hangs her right there on the street. And he begins pulling the rope down himself as she's like raised up into the and as he's doing this, you can see all of the ceremony that normally surrounds like the king's justice being materialized in place around him. Like a lectern is pulled from nowhere and pushed into place. A gallows man suddenly arrives and takes, his gloved hands take the rope from the king and like begin finishing the hanging as the king steps up onto the pulpit. And before she's finished reaching the top, the king has begun speaking. Sentenced for crimes of treason against the people of Udril, for interfering in the king's court, and for theft, we now hang Alex Greenvale, former countess of Udril. And the people around you are just silent, looking at what's going on. And you can see some of the off in the distance, towards the field district. You can see a couple of the wolves running down the private security goons, and there is no silence over the snarling mess that they're making. And on that note, tonight's Dungeons and Dragons session comes to a close.
Well, you and me, the end of the video, kinda awkward. Kinda waiting for you to subscribe and all that. I'm just gonna head out.